But let's talk about this game. Now, Tom Brady has dabbled in the world of acting a little bit. You know, he was in Ted 2. I thought that was an Oscar-worthy film from top to bottom. But he said this week, unlike the movies, you don't get multiple takes in football and to get it right. Now, they didn't get much right against the New Orleans Saints, arguably the worst loss of Tom Brady's career. So this week, he brought up continuity repeatedly. He said when you have continuity, you're at an advantage. He had that in New England. He said when you don't have continuity, you're at a disadvantage. He said, I've seen a lot of football. Bruce Arians has seen a lot of football, but we haven't seen it and corrected it together. So he said we need to keep our foot on the gas. We need to find ways to correct our mistakes faster. And he said we now, moving forward, have to have a sense of urgency. Now, the leadership is playing a role this week. Levante David didn't have to go up to anybody on that defense about the mistakes that were made. He said guys were coming up to him about their issues. And Bruce Arians said, Colleen, when you have great leadership, you very seldom lose 2 games in a row. If Brady loses this one, though, that'll be the first time in his career he loses back-to-back games in the division. Let's see what happens tomorrow.
I cannot believe that has never, ever happened. History that Tom Brady does not want to make tomorrow. James, thank you. We'll keep an eye out for that photo on Twitter, my friend. So here, the Panthers, they would love to replicate what the Saints did to Tom Brady. I'm not sure they're going to be able to, but his stats versus the Saints compared to everyone else, 0-2 against their divisional rival. They're 6-1 against all other opponents, including 18 touchdowns to just 2 picks and a passer rating of 106. Really bad matchup for the Bucs going up against the Saints. Now, this is a little different. D. Hall going up against the Panthers with their defense. What adjustments would you like to see the Bucs make in this game?
Well, I want to see this Bucs really have an identity, and I mean that on both sides of the football, right? We saw Tampa play Green Bay. We saw Tampa be physical with them. We saw them run the football. We saw them take their shots when they needed to. And I feel like, you know, now that they got AB, or at least in that one game that I saw with AB, all they wanted to do was throw the ball. We understand that you have a new shiny toy, but you can't just force the football to them. You can't, this young offensive line, especially with their all-pro player out, you can't expect them to just sit there and pass protect the whole time. You have to give offensive linemen the ability to come off in the run game. And so that inability to run the football, and on the defensive side of the football, you can't just sit back there. That was a bad game plan to me. Yes, some of the players, you know, you got to go out there and you got to execute. And like I said, Tom didn't play great offensively, but you got to be aggressive. You got some young players on this Tampa defense that can really go, super athletic. I want to see those guys attacking, man. So, you know, on both sides of the football, they really need to lock in on who they want to be because they're a talented football team.
They ran the football 5 times. Now, I understand that that is partly due, to the fact that they fell behind early. But you're going to have to do a little bit more than that because, like D. Hall said, you're leaving your offensive line hung out to dry. And not only that, they got into a point where they had to throw the football to try to get back in the game. They didn't slide. They didn't chip. They didn't have a running back help protection. They had their 5 trying to protect Tom Brady, who we know is not very mobile. He was a sitting duck back there. Can't have that again. You're going to get that guy killed if you continue to do that. I was talking to a defensive coach this week who was watching that game and noticed that and said, how are they not helping out with protection there? We saw how the Saints were just teeing off on Tom Brady. And you look at the games this year, he's been sacked 3 times in 3 games. All of them losses. The other games, fewer than 3 sacks. They've won those games. It's really all about protection. There's a lot of things that go into protection, including, as I mentioned, running the football. Tampa's got to do a better job than they did last week.
And they also have to do a better job of getting the ball to Mike Evans. He's averaging just 5 targets a game this year, and that's compared to 9 over his last 5 years. I mean, when you look at the last 4 weeks for Mike Evans, he's had 17 total targets. That's like 1 game for Davante Adams. Now, I get it. He was dealing with the ankle injury. Bruce Arians talked about it after the game last week that Mike Evans, though, was open in this game. Of course, like, he's matched up against the top DBs in these matchups. And also Tom Brady's talking about, well, you know, consistency. We haven't had enough time yet together. But whatever it is, they got to get it figured out. They need to get him the ball way more. Now, this week, it's going to be a little bit of a better matchup for Mike Evans. He did well week 2, so we'll see if he can replicate it.
Yeah, Colleen. It's tough to get Mike Evans the football when you're constantly getting hit and assaulted in the pocket like Tom Brady was against the New Orleans Saints. And guys, guard Ali Marpet not being in the lineup was huge. His backup did not block anybody. He cannot have another game like that if they want to win. But also defensively, guys, like if defense is supposed to be the strength of your team, then you have to show up every single week consistently. We won our Super Bowl with the Seattle Seahawks. That was our biggest challenge getting to that moment, was being consistent with the strength of our team, which was defense and running the football. So to your point, D-Hall, knowing what your identity is, not only as an offense, but as a team, and defensively, that pass defense, they got a track team coming to town with the Carolina Panthers and Robbie Anderson, DJ Moore, and Curtis Samuels, who I think if Curtis Samuels should be vital in this game with Christian McCaffrey not playing. This kid can catch the ball on the outside, catch the ball out of the slot, and they also hand him the ball out of the backfield. So this Bucs team, they better have their pass defense right, because this track team of receivers that the Carolina Panthers have, they can run right past them. And obviously Teddy Bridgewater completing over 70% of his passes. He's the right guy to get him the ball.
Mike, Rob, real quick button on what you talked about with the offensive line as well. With Ali Marpet out, still not cleared from concussion protocol. We'll see if he's available. The Bucs have talked about, do they need to juggle some things on the interior of their line, even if not to start the game, maybe during the game. So keep an eye on that.
Yeah, after seeing last week, I think the answer would be yes. They needed to make a couple adjustments coming into this game against the Panthers. So we'll see what happens. All right, here we go, guys. Start the